Hello, I'm Laura Jones, and we have a special program starting in just a few minutes at 8 p.m., a live show called Meet the Candidates. Tonight, we will be talking to the candidates who are looking to replace the late Congressman Bill Pascrell on the ballot in November. Congressman Pascrell died last week at the age of 87 years old, and Democrats have until August 29th to fill Pascrell's vacant spot on the general election ballot. The candidates are State Senator Nellie Pou, Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, and Assemblyman Benjie Wimberly. I'm going to be joined by a special panel, including the editor of the New Jersey Globe, David Wildstein, New Jersey Globe reporter Joey Fox, and Micah Rasmussen, who is the director of the Rabovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Make sure to stay with us. The live show starts at 8 p.m. Hello and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm Laura Jones, and this is a special opportunity to get to know the people who want to represent you in public office. Tonight, we turn our attention to the 9th Congressional District, which takes in parts of Bergen and Passaic counties, as well as a portion of Hudson County. In a sad turn of events, longtime Congressman Bill Pascrell, who held the seat, passed away last week after a brief illness. He was 87. While we just lost the congressman, state law says we have until August 29th to find a replacement candidate for the November ballot. Tonight, we are going to meet the three candidates who want to take on the role of representing New Jersey's 9th Congressional District: State Senator Nellie Pou, Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, and Assemblyman Benjie Wimberly. Now, each candidate tonight is going to get 90 seconds for an opening statement as well as 90 seconds for a closing statement. After those opening statements, our panel is going to ask a series of questions for each candidate, who will then have 1 minute to respond. Now, this is a conversation, not a debate, so I'll ask all those participating to keep that in mind. Joining me on the panel this evening, we are happy to welcome David Wildstein, editor of the New Jersey Globe, New Jersey Globe reporter Joey Fox, and Micah Rasmussen, the director of the Rabovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Now again, our candidates each will be asked a series of questions by our panelists, and they have 60 seconds to respond. Follow-up questions will be at my discretion. We're going to have a clock running that the candidates can see. Now, if they go too long on time, I will interrupt. Hopefully I won't have to do that, though. And again, as a reminder, tonight's show is a forum, and we want to cover as many topics as possible to give the voters an opportunity to learn more about those looking to run in November for Congressman Bill Pascrell's seat. Time now for opening statements. So first, we are going to begin with State Senator Nellie Pou. We start with you, then we're going to be going to Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, followed by Assemblyman Benjie Wimberly. So, Senator Pou, Nellie Pou, the floor is yours for 90 seconds.
Thank you so very much. First, let me just thank the New Jersey Globe for putting together this forum. It is my privilege and honor to be able to be with all of you this evening. My name, as it was said, my name is Nellie Pou. For the past 27 years, I've had the honor of representing the 35th Legislative District in the New Jersey legislature. The passing of my dear friend and mentor, Bill Pascrell, is a profound loss for all of us who knew his tremendous work ethics and unwavering commitment to the people of Passaic, Bergen, and Hudson County. I first stepped into this seat in the state legislature when Bill moved on to Congress, and I'm here tonight to continue his exceptional work for New Jersey in Congress. I was born and raised in the city of Paterson. I understand the struggles of making ends meet. My father was a blue collar worker, while my mother stayed at home to raise me and my four siblings. Just like many New Jersey families, we all chipped in to get by, and our dinner table was always open to everyone. My experience fueled, or I should say that experience, but my experience has fueled by the commitment to giving back to the community, and that's the, and that supported that effort for making sure that we were able to do everything within our power to help everyone who we possibly can within our ability to do that. But as I said, my commitment to doing this and was to give back to the community. With over 40 years in public service, first with the city of Paterson, and then as a state legislature, I know that I can get things done. Thank you
Senator,
very much for the opportunity.
thank you, Senator, for that. Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, it is your turn for an opening statement.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Laura, and thank you to the Globe for having me. It is with humility that I join in this forum as a candidate for the 9th Congressional District. While we are here with profound sadness due to the loss of our Congressman Bill Pascrell, a fierce advocate whose legacy will live on in his family and with each of us. We must also face the challenge before us. Our country's resilience and adaptability are being tested, and the extremism Republicans have embraced has me alarmed, to say the least. But as my mom always told me, when you see something wrong, do something about it. And like this new generation of political leaders, such as Vice President Harris, I am ready to move us forward. I built a life ensuring that mental health services are accessible to those who need them most, and fighting on behalf of our children and families with Children's Aid and Family Services. In these roles, I saw firsthand the most urgent needs of our state. Serving in the state legislature since 2012, I have a strong record of bipartisan support, have the most bills signed into law, both in the Senate and the House, even with the Republican governor in place. I worked to restore the right to vote for thousands, fought for equal pay, raised the minimum wage, protected reproductive freedom, supported maternal health, expanded paid family leave, and the child tax credit. I am a fighter, and I believe that to whom much is given, much is required. This is part of my DNA that is most like Congressman Pascrell. I am ready to represent the people of New Jersey and together with Vice President Harris, protect our freedoms and our democracy. Thank you very much.
Assemblyman Benjie Wimberly, time for your opening statement.
Thank the Globe for this opportunity to be on tonight. It is a privilege and an honor to try to fill the shoes of the legendary Bill Pascrell. Bill Pascrell was a friend, a mentor, and somebody that I truly looked up to in not just the political arena, but as who he was as a man. I am part of 7 generations of Paterson and this district here in New Jersey. My family has been a major part of the business community and political community and is for many years here in Paterson in the political arena. I am born and raised from public housing to a 5th ward lower income diverse community in the city of Paterson, a product of public schools, PCTI, and someone who had to work their way through college to understand what college affordability is about. After graduating college, during my college years, I always came back to volunteer and work as a camp counselor, as a volunteer baseball coach, whatever it was to be engaged in the community. I was blessed and have the opportunity to be a teacher at Eastside High School for 9 years, where I was a special education teacher, baseball coach, and assistant football coach. During that time, I really had been able to put my hand on the pulse of what's needed here in New Jersey, not just New Jersey, but America. Leading young men is something I've done for over 40 years. I've been a volunteer coach, a high school coach, a football coach. I moved on to Paterson Catholic, where we won 7 state championships and gave opportunities for hundreds of kids to go to college for free. After that, I moved to Bergen County for 9 years and worked with Bergen County students for many years. At the state level, I have risen from many committee memberships, to the vice chair of budget, to Speaker Pro Tempore. And the one thing during my time on the budget committee for 13 years, I can say I brought millions of dollars back to our community for infrastructure, for education, for housing, and health. And it's something that I can say with all three of my colleagues that we work together. I think we all can say that we've made Bill Pascrell proud in Trenton.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for their opening statements. Now, before we get started with our panel questions, I'm going to go first to David Wildstein, bring him in from the New Jersey Globe. David, before we start with the questions, I know you wanted to say a few words about this evening and about the late Congressman Bill Pascrell.
Thanks, Laura. Before we begin the forum, I'd like to just acknowledge the sad circumstances that have necessitated all of us being together this evening. And whether you agreed or disagreed with Congressman Pascrell, it's undeniable that he was an authentic Jersey guy. He served his nation, his state, his beloved hometown of Paterson as a fighter for what he believed. I knew him for 35 years. He was one of a kind, and we will all miss him.
David, thank you, and thank you for organizing all of this. You are going to have the first question. You have the first question that is going to go first to Assemblywoman Sumter, then to Assemblyman Wimberly, then to Senator Pou. Don't worry, everyone. I've got the list, and we'll keep everybody on track. And each of you, again, has 1 minute to respond. David, over to you for your first question.
Assemblywoman, polling has showed that Americans are more concerned than ever before about the advanced age of public officials. And we've seen that with Joe Biden, with Donald Trump, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Dianne Feinstein, Mitch McConnell, even the late Congressman Pascrell. Do you believe that there ought to be age limits for presidents, for Supreme Court justices, and for members of Congress? And do you support term limits?
So, David, thank you for that question. If you had asked me that question probably 10 years ago, I would not have known the answer. But today, having served in the legislature for over 12 years and also watching the cognitive decline of a number of representatives, from our great Senator Sandy Cunningham to Senator Ronald L. Rice, who called his time when he called his time, to Senator Cody, who made his decision to exit the legislature and enjoy his remaining time, to Tom Giblin. When we look local, we see these things. When we think about staying in these positions that require an intensity of thought leadership and cognitive ability, we must give thought to how can we exit with grace. So yes, I believe that there should be an age limit and that we should look to advance directives so that decisions could be made when someone becomes incapacitated while in office.
Okay, Assemblyman Wimberly, you're next.
I will say is you have to look at probably term limits so more than age. I think it's a fresh approach to politics and keeping people engaged. I think if you have the same person representing you for such a long period of time, it's not a really a process that's very inclusive. In particularly when you talk about the Supreme Court, I think we're living that situation now when you have one president have the ability to put somebody on the Supreme Court for, maybe a lifetime, 3 people. That have an impact on everything, obviously, from women's reproductive rights to education to DEI. So I believe there definitely should be term limitations.
Okay, Senator Pou, you are next.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I certainly understand the question and believe that certainly we should be looking very closely at how one person's ability, what kind of ability they have in order to be able to continue to do their job. If indeed there is some kind of physical impediment or mental impediment or just health impediment altogether, we would be able to then make sure to ensure that they have, that they should be making those proper decisions. Certainly in positions of higher up like that of the Supreme Court, I do have some concern of lifetime lifetime remaining in those positions without having some kind of term limitation in that regard. So yes, do I think that for those particular positions we ought to be looking at that very carefully and serious? I certainly do.
Okay, David, your next question will go first to Assemblyman Wimberly, then to Senator Pou, then Assemblywoman Sumter.
Thanks. As the Israel-Hamas war goes on, should the United States continue to send military aid and weapons to Israel as it has been doing?
And my response, David, will be, basically right on line with Vice President Kamala Harris said the other day. Israel has a right to protect themselves. Nobody is in favor of war. Everybody wants to make sure that innocent lives aren't being lost in any war, not just in Gaza or in the Middle East, but anywhere. I also believe that the United States has to have obviously invest interest and obviously a position with Israel that we've had for U.S. purposes and for NATO purposes. So I do believe that we have to support this, and we also have to make sure that we protect the people with humanitarian aid as needed and bring this war to an end as soon as possible and look at a two-state solution.
Nellie Pou, you are next with that question.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. First, let me just say that I truly believe that America needs to be a leader in the world, and I believe that is indeed the case. We need to stand by our allies, and we need to stand with democracy and freedom, not dictators, and certainly not with divisions. I come from a community that is remarkably diverse and where people respect their neighbors. This is the real world lesson that I intend to bring to Congress. And let me just also say that I do think it's vitally important that any and all sovereign nations have a right to defend themselves. So I do think that America, as I've pointed out, needs to be a leader in the world, and that's exactly what we are doing today.
Shavonda Sumter, you're next.
Thank you. And I'm standing with Vice President Kamala Harris, who was clear that America would support its allies. We need a ceasefire immediately. Hostages need to be released immediately. A two-state solution for peace and humanitarian aid needs to happen. And I'll hold it there because I definitely agree with both of my colleagues.
Okay, David, you have a follow-up?
Yes, I'd like to know, would you have voted yes or no on the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that was approved by the House in the spring?
So let's go first to Assemblyman Wimberly.
I'm sorry. Okay, I thought it was switching over, but yeah, Dave, I would support any bill that is in not in favor of any type of racism. Being African American and with so much extremism going on here in America and the hate that we've seen since Donald Trump came into office, I would support anything that is anti-Semitic, anything that's racial, anything that's gender bias or sexual related bias. So that's across the board.
Okay, Nellie Pou, your answer to the follow-up?
Yes, I'll be quick with my answer. As I've mentioned before, I come from a community where there's a very diverse, a remarkably diverse area where people all live together. And I absolutely do believe that we should stand firmly together and making sure that is possible and people have the ability to live freely and peacefully among each other. Having said that, let me also point out very, very carefully that I think one of the things that we certainly need to do, and if if I get the privilege of being able to represent the people of the 9th Congressional District, I would absolutely look to make sure that we are getting information and following what our Democratic session would be doing in order to ensure that we're following some of what clearly President Kamala Harris, once she takes office, would be guiding it.
Okay, and Shavonda Sumter, final thoughts on this question.
Yes, I would support it as we have supported our hate crimes and fighting against hate crimes throughout my entire tenure in the legislature. We have stood with the Muslim community, we've stood with the Jewish community, and they've in turn stood with us in the Black community when we had over enforcement and hate crimes committed against us. So it's important to me that we combat all hate, racism, LGBTQ abuse, because it leads to so much hurt and pain. We are from a very diverse community. New Jersey is a very diverse state. My family migrated here from the south to the north part of the Great Migration, looking for a better opportunity. Paterson, the heart of this district, has been just that for so many different populations. And when I think of the harm and the hate of words in today's society, post the racist society of the civil rights era, I'm still in pain, and I will fight avidly to make sure that we repair those harms.
Micah Rasmussen, we go to you for your questions, which will go first to Senator Pou, then Assemblywoman Sumter, and then Assemblyman Wimberly. Micah, to you.
Thank you. Given the frustrating lack of resolution of voter fraud problems that have been well documented in past elections in Paterson, can the public have confidence in our elections? What needs to be done to justify the confidence of all voters?
Thank you for that question. Let me just say that we're well aware of all of the various different positions or situations that have been taking place with any kind of voters discrepancy as well as fraud. I certainly do think that we have the responsibility of making sure to prevent that from happening, and every possible step that we can take in that regard, we should be doing that. I know that I have introduced and supported, along with my colleagues, many different legislation that would allow to prevent that from happening, and looking for ways of us to secure that, whether it's through further ensuring that our election officials have all the tools necessary in order for them to do that. It's something that I would continue to support in the in Congress.
Assemblywoman Sumter.
Thank you. Protecting the vote is critical for us, and making sure that there is no voter fraud. It's important that we have enforcements and protocols in place and the tools to act swiftly. We have a couple of outstanding cases in Paterson where actually the cases have gone on 2 terms. So yes, that has an impact on voter confidence when we can't resolve these cases with a speedy trial, a jury of their peers. So we need to ensure confidence. We need to make sure that our clerks have the tools they need for enforcement, and also the financial resources, which we've supported in the legislature for advancements within our election process. Because in New Jersey, we have up to 5 elections a year, which is a lot. It is de minimis, the amount of fraud, but of course, 1 ounce of fraud does have an impact on voter confidence. So we need to call it out when we see it and work swiftly for a speedy trial to eradicate it.
Assemblyman Wimberly.
Yeah, voter fraud, in particularly in Paterson, has played a major impact. You have 80,000 registered voters. I think our last municipal election, maybe 12,000 people came out to vote. In 2010, I was part of that process as a city council candidate when voter fraud was really brought its ugly head to the city of Paterson. And I will say that the Attorney General has addressed it. My colleagues have said it well. I think we need to make sure all of our courts are full, that we get judges in places so these cases don't have to linger on for years and years. But the main thing I want to make sure is that we have these opportunities when it comes to vote by mail, because not having these opportunities is somewhat voter suppression. I want to make sure folks understand that there's early voting, there's vote by mail. There's so many other ways with registration and stuff like that. So I don't want people to be discouraged by these few cases, because when you look at this, and you may look at Paterson, Bergen County, Passaic County, it's a minimal amount of people who are involved in voter fraud. But it's something that I think we have to continue to work on and make sure the funding is there for our staff.
Micah, back to you.
All 3 of you voted to approve the state law that restricted the public's access to the public's records. Why? And should the Federal Freedom of Information Act be similarly overhauled?
Assemblywoman Sumter, you are first, then to Assemblywoman Wimberly, then to Senator Pou.
Great. Thank you for that question. That was a hard-fought bill. I hope the Open Public Records Act, one of the things that bill did was it actually modernized the system. We had some abuses and some clerks who did not have the staff to respond to cases and ended up in court or having to pay fines and fees because they weren't able to turn the documents over in a timely manner. So part of that legislation, a big part, which I was very supportive of, was to add enforcements to the bill for bad actors who were gaming the system and using it as a business to gain money from clerks' offices, and also to tie the single clerk up into a paper jam. Two, to help clerks modernize in municipalities their systems so that they can put more information online so they would not have to make a request. No bill is perfect. It had some flaws in it. I will be the first to admit that. The great thing about being in the legislature is that you get to go back and have another bite at the apple. And if elected to Congress, it would be just that, putting my hand to the grind and making sure we understand what's involved and how we can modernize these bills to meet the needs of today.
Assemblyman, you're up.
Yeah, the Oprah bill is probably one of the most difficult bills I think we dealt with this session, and I think my colleagues would agree. One is I think there were measures put in place for abuse, and I think that's the main thing. Many of the municipal leaders, be it clerks or mayors or council people that came forth to us, were small municipalities in particular, were being overwhelmed with Oprah requests. Not only was it a task issue, it was a financial issue for them. So I think some of the bill that you look at, I think it's a major plus for us in not just our community, but I think this is something we could lead a national way when it comes to the Oprah Act. I do think that all these acts and the records should be open and available. I just do not believe in the abuse of the process.
Nellie Pou, your thoughts?
Thank you. First of all, I would agree with many of the very important statements that were made just now by my colleagues with respect to the difficulty of this particular legislation and how we all fought very hard to make sure that we were doing the right thing. I think it's already been said, but it's important to point that transparency was the number one issue. Is something that I have completely and totally throughout my entire career have been very open to, and I have been extremely transparent in everything that I have done. I think the fact that we had the ability to change and enter into law and modernizing a system that will help to ensure that governments all throughout the state of New Jersey were not impacted with being overburdened by many of the demands and areas that in some cases, as it's already been pointed out, there's been extreme abuse on how that particular piece of requirement was taking place. Transparency is key, and the fact that we're able to ensure that the new law will allow for this to continue to be had. It's just a matter of making sure that it is well described and clarified in terms of getting that information to the requester.
Okay, Joey Fox, over to you for a question.
So if you're elected to Congress, would you intend to sign on as a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All Act? And if not that, what other healthcare policies might you be interested in pursuing?
Assemblyman Wimberly, you're going to be first, then Senator Pou, then Assemblywoman Sumter.
Definitely, and I think this is something we live in a community where Medicare for all is paramount. Nobody should have to deal with not being able to take care of themselves. In particular, in our community, so many of our residents deal with high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, different things that Medicare is needed for and assistance. I would be on board with all medical bills or medical bills that address the needs of probably the working class person, the person that doesn't have insurance, the person that needs assistance with prescription care. These are all the things that I think as Americans, and I think as a congressman, that this should be at the top of the list. And this starts from prenatal care to early childhood care to dental care to eye care, things that people take for granted. Many people, and I'm talking about working class people, do not have this, and they do not have the opportunity to get affordable prescription drugs. That is going to be a major push for me in Washington.
Nellie Pou, to you.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I do agree and believe that there ought to be Medicare for all, as it was pointed out. And I would also say that I would look forward to working collaboratively with President Kamala Harris to tackle the high costs of critical medication as we have experienced in our healthcare system. And that is including the insulin and obesity treatment. At the same time, I think one of the important things that we ought to be looking at also is to support some of our many important pharmaceutical research companies in order to provide very vital life-saving measures in order to treat many of those life-threatening ailment. So do I believe that it ought to be available for all? I certainly do. And when I have the opportunity to get to Congress, I would be looking to be supportive of that.
Okay, Shavonda Sumter, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I agree with everything that my colleagues have said, but I will add that a healthy community means an economic future. So Medicare for all and access to universal healthcare, single point system to be sure that we have healthy citizens makes a difference. We talked about putting the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. When that first came out, we had 1 million people in New Jersey who did not have insurance, who were able to have insurance. The hospital emergency room no longer had to be the last point of care where conditions were at in stages. The disparate care that has been documented, especially for minority communities, can be combated if we have Medicare for all and universal health care. So those pieces are important. Dental care, critical for health and life safety treatment, vision, critical. When we introduced our exchange in New Jersey, I traveled across the state just to explain that to people, because what government doesn't do well is share with the community how best they can tap into it. And going to Congress, I would be sure to have those conversations with our constituencies on how they can access their benefits.
Joey, your next question?
Yeah, so obviously, due to the timing of Congressman Pascrell's death and due to the way that state law works out, there's going to be no primary for this seat this year. That's just not going to be an election that happens. Whoever wins this convention is going to go on to the November general election, and that'll be it. But presumably, if one of you wins, then you will face voters, or primary voters, I should say, in 2026. And so I'm curious, by then, would you like to see New Jersey's county line ballot design system in primaries be abolished? And would you like to see any other kind of reforms put in place before this next cycle, when you would first properly go before primary voters?
Senator Pou, you're first.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. First, let me just say, to be very direct in terms of the question with regards, would I like to see the party line be changed? I'd leave that, and I will certainly be looking to continue the conversations with our leadership. I strongly believe that there should be multiple systems that will allow everyone to be part of the democratic process. So I believe anyone who has the interest and the ability to be able to express and want to serve in office ought to be given that opportunity, whether it is done through the party line process or through other different measures. Everyone today is able to be a candidate of in any particular office holding. It doesn't necessarily prevent them from entering a race, because they would only be excluded from a party line system. So no, I think this is something that democracy will always stand firm, and one that would be protected.
I've got to interrupt you there. Assemblywoman Sumter, I'm sorry, Senator, your time is up. Assemblywoman Sumter.
Thank you. And to the senator's point, I do believe that New Jerseyans can figure out how to vote. We have a party line system, and then we have nonpartisan council races and school board races that are citywide. So as we advance, and depending on the court decision that comes down, and if the party line is gone, then it is knowing the voter name and where you're placed on the ballot. I am for making sure there is some uniformity in the ballot to eliminate voter confusion. And also we've legislated for multiple language ballots, because we need to be sure that people understand what's on the ballot, and especially when there's referendums on the ballot. So there's still work to be done on the design of the ballot to make sure that it's friendly versus having the school board on the back side, the president on the front side, and 10 spaces in between, or lines or rows. We really can do a better job in the design and making sure that it's consistent across the 21 counties and the 500 plus municipalities, so that our voters know what they're looking at and how to participate in the electoral process.
And Benjie Wimberly.
Yeah, the one thing, and I will come right back behind that, is I would say the uniformity is probably one of the major issues. So you have counties that are vertical, you have counties that are horizontal. I think, this past primary election showed that, the parties, candidates really didn't take any major losses with the changes, but uniformity, I think, is important for many of our voters to understand who they are. And I think the work of the candidate is going to pop out regardless of where they are. This current election, I just want to make it perfectly clear to people that this is a unique situation that unfortunately many people do not understand. And I think we as candidates and as elected officials and county chairs have to explain to people. I do not want anybody to be discouraged from voting come November because we have to get Kamala Harris in office. This is very unique. With the county committee selection on Thursday is one thing. Is it the normal? No. Is it something that I think any of us want? No. We want everybody to go to the polls, but we do agree, I think, with all of our chairmen that this is the best process for the ballots to be done in time. And unfortunately.
David Wildstein, back over to you with your question.
So Congressman Pascrell was one of 2 New Jersey House members to support the Green New Deal. If you're elected to Congress, will you add your name to that bill as a co-sponsor?
Assemblyman Wimberly, you're first.
So the Green New Deal was something that I have looked at in the last day. It's something that I would love the opportunity to have a collaboration and sit down with his current staff to see if it's something that benefits us. And usually if Bill Pascrell supports something, it's more than likely that I'm 95% sure that I will be on board with the bill.
And my apologies, I messed up that order. It was supposed to be Assemblywoman Sumter. My mistake there. Assemblywoman Sumter, over to you. And then Senator Pou.
Thank you. I would support the Green New Bill. I think we need to consider New Jersey continues to be hit with different floods and environmental issues. In Paterson, we have businesses that continue to flood, and every time it rains, they're in a state of panic and trauma, wondering whether their business is going to erode into the Passaic River. So part of this is the environment is changing, and we're seeing it more frequently. Also worried about clean water and how the infrastructure bill plays into a Green New Deal. So definitely would be supportive of it and learning more and bringing resources back to New Jersey so we can deal with our climate issues as well.
Senator Nellie Pou, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I would be supportive of the Green New Bill that was just referenced. I think it's important for us to be able to make sure that all of our environmental issues are one that are paid very close attention, and that we have the necessary resources that will allow us to make sure that many of our communities are protected all throughout the state of New Jersey.
All right, David, back
and
to
you.
And
I meant Green New Bill.
David, back over to you for your question.
I want to talk a little bit or hear your comment about immigration. Specifically, what kind of plan to protect America's borders would you be willing to support?
And that one is going to go first to Assemblyman Wimberly, Senator Pou, then to Assemblywoman Sumter.
Okay, we're getting a little confused on the order, but I got it.
Yeah, that last one was on me. That was on me.
That's fine.
We're back on track now.
No, I got it, and I understand the concerns when it comes to border control. I think our House and our Senate and President came up with an excellent bill that unfortunately Donald Trump killed. and he killed it because of his presidential election. So I will fight and understand that we have to do what's best for the borders and give people the opportunity to become American citizens the right way, give them a lead way, and make sure that nobody's ever called illegal and undocumented residents have an opportunity to what the freedoms of America offer. And obviously with the numbers that we see of people coming into New York City alone, we know there has to be some type of reform. No city can handle that amount of people when it comes not only to infrastructure, housing, schools, food, and health. This impacts everywhere when you talk about immigration reform. So I look forward to working on this. I know in the community with over 57 nationalities, in the district with probably 70 plus nationalities, this will be something that will be at the top of our list in Congress.
Nellie Pou, over to you.
Yes, thank you so very much. First of all, let me just say that I do believe that a comprehensive immigration reform is absolutely important, and that we ensure every possible measures that need to be taken to secure our borders, and that it is anchored on the premise that immigration is an economic necessity for all of us. But I want to also point out that it's important that it also be included for a pathway of citizenship for those particular individuals, as we refer to them for many as dreamers, for the essential workers and including the farm workers. I would also point out that it was already said, but it's important to indicate the importance that there was a very important piece of legislation that was absolutely sunk and killed, if you will, in the Congress as a result of the actions taken by the Republicans not voting for it. That would have absolutely opened the pathway for the immigration system.
Assemblywoman Sumter.
Thank you. I would absolutely work on a bipartisan border bill similar to what the White House has negotiated with the Senate earlier this year. I share the concerns of Vice President Harris of the millions crossing the border is a liability, also supporting legal status opportunities for persons without status. Our system is broken. We need protections for dreamers, as was said, and additional pathways to citizenship with a system to keep us safe. As I talked to constituents these last few days, I learned that Congressman Pascrell was very much beloved seeing individuals take their oath of allegiance at the naturalization ceremonies. Additionally, my office has worked closely with his office to assist individuals with the process. Further, I have worked with advocates and heard the harrowing stories of children fearful of their parents not having a legal status and being separated. Hence my commitment to work towards a bipartisan border bill and legal status opportunities for all.
Okay, Micah Rasmussen, over to you for our next question.
Democratic nominee for Congress, what will be the most important policy differences between you and Billy Prempa, the Republican nominee? Not so much political differences. What will be the biggest policy differences?
Nellie Pou, you are first.
So the policy difference that I think that would be different with me and my opponent would be that I would absolutely fight for democracy. I would make sure that we take every possible action to ensure that is not threatened. I would make sure to work very closely on a bipartisan level to ensure that is done. And I would also look to support the leadership of President Kamala Harris once elected to ensure that we're able to provide that kind of difference. What separates us from the other side is the fact that we believe in freedom, we believe in the democracy, and we believe that there should be something that is respectful of everyone in a manner that we in this country should not go without being able to voice our concerns, but do it in a manner that is respectful to all.
Shavonda Sumter.
Thank you. There are stark differences between us and the opponent for Congress. First off, we would protect our reproductive freedoms. Our daughters and daughters yet to be born will have their reproductive rights protected and autonomy over their bodies. We also would not be in denial of the climate issues that are facing our country and our world and globally. We also would not deny a peaceful transition of power with the insurrection that happened on January 6th. There are stark differences with the beliefs and the espousing of false narratives in today's politics with the Republican Party. And the candidate running with them, while he is from this district, must recognize that the experiences of our New Jerseyans in the CD9 district are that of embracing diversity, culture, and New Jersey believes in protecting reproductive freedoms.
Benjie Wimberly.
I think the key difference is that anybody who embraces, and if you had a chance to even peruse Project 2025, you should be alarmed and worried. This candidate or any candidate that's on the other side that supports anything, as my colleagues had said, women reproductive rights is probably paramount on that list. I think as elected officials, we should not be telling any woman what to do with her body. That should be very concerning for everybody. In 2024, it should be a major issue for this election for Kamala Harris and Coach Walz moving forward. And I think somebody has to take the horns with this. And I'm not talking about Democrats, but I'm talking about maybe moderates, maybe people who are undecided, that they get on top of this. Global warming is key. We live it every day in District 9 with flooding, infrastructure issues with our bridges and our roads collapsing. And these types of things are something we live with. And the last thing is education. Anybody who wants to abolish the Department of Education and have the haves and have-nots, I will fight them tooth and nail to make sure that it never happens and Project 2025 never becomes into existence.
Micah Rasmussen, back to you.
There have been some alarming decisions, to say the least, that have come from the United States Supreme Court, whether it's Trump versus the United States, the sweeping presidential immunity, or Bruin, virtually the end of state gun control, or Dobbs with regard to abortion. What can Congress do about these decisions? What can Congress do to push back on them? I know that they concern all of you. What can you as a member of Congress do to push back on this?
Assem Sumter, you're first.
Thank you. A couple things. Coming from New Jersey, we've done a lot of work on each and every one of those issues. We have some of the strongest gun reform laws in the country. Duty to warn, something that I sponsor, working with professionals who may come into contact with someone who may have a mental illness and have access to a firearm, making sure that they are not penalized for warning the authorities or warning someone who may be in danger because of someone having access to a weapon. Concealed carry becoming the law of the land under that administration. Another challenge for us. In parks, public spaces, we took that issue to court. So it's about bringing the New Jersey grit to Congress, which Congressman Pascrell often told his stories on how he would say, take it straight to him and tell him what we were fighting for in New Jersey and standing up to bullies. Wrong is wrong. Taking away affirmative action, blaming diversity for not having jobs or categorizing jobs as Black jobs to be offensive. No, we need to unite. We need to be the United States of America, and we need to support the ideals of everyone having self-determination.
Benjie Wimberly, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump is the poster boy of why we have to have reforms in the Supreme Court of the United States. The immunity piece is something that he actually talked into existence. If you remember his first term, he talked about if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, nothing would happen to him. You know, and his comments and behavior says it all. That alone shows that we need reforms when it comes to the Supreme Court of the United States. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is something that is disrespectful in so many ways and manners. You think about the America that we know, from slavery to immigrants building this country on their backs to so many lack of opportunities, from segregation, that diversity DI is something that not is an earned thing, but our ancestors earned to put us in those positions. That makes us a better America when you have diversity, equity, and inclusion. You need diverse schools. You need diverse educational systems. You need diverse businesses. These are opportunities that are earned, not given.
Nellie Pou.
Thank you. Thank you. I absolutely agree with my colleagues when it talks about making sure that we do everything within our power to ensure that we protect all of our citizens throughout our entire state of New Jersey. And I know that when I get into Congress, I will be looking to fight very strongly to ensure that those rights are continued to be protected. I think it's important for us to make sure that the Supreme Court, with many of the decisions that they've made, and that it is done in a manner and that it's done in a way that we're able to ensure that the language is very clear. The only way that the Supreme Court can prevent them from taking those unilateral decision is if we have legislations and laws in place that clearly defines what they can and cannot do. So I think it's important for when we get to vote on those things and introduce legislation like those strong gun protections that we're talking about, making sure that we prevent that, just like we're doing here in the state of New Jersey, and we've taken action and voted on that.
I'm going to have to cut you off there. I apologize, Senator Joey. We're running out of time, so we have time for one more question for our panelists before we go to closing statements. Joey, to you.
Yeah, so any of your hypothetical first terms in Congress would be, the time when you would be there is when there's going to be a major tax fight happening, and specifically a fight over the state and local tax deduction cap, which has obviously been a major deal in New Jersey and which is set to expire at the end of next year. Would you support letting the cap expire, or do you think that that having it in place has had any benefits for New Jersey or for the country?
Benjie Wimberly, you're first.
Definitely, this is something that I would give great, I give kudos to Josh Gottheimer, our congressman. He's been at the forefront of this, and I think we have to make sure that the monies from these tax cuts go back into the working class and the middle class, and give these people the opportunity to shop and have extra food and have child care. These are the things that are important. We need to make sure that the lesser, not the 1%, but those who are working day to day, paycheck to paycheck, making sure rent is paid, mortgage is paid, have these opportunities. So I would definitely be part of this and making sure that the working class, the poor, and the middle class have these opportunities.
Nellie Pou, over to you.
Yes, I agree with my colleague. Obviously, it's very important for us to make sure that we have all, once again, as I pointed out, the resources necessary to ensure that these types of protections are in place. And when we talk about the tax cap, we need to make sure that it's not going to be done or prevent us from being able to provide the kind of services and programs that are currently in place. In order for us to do that, we need to make sure that we have the necessary resources available so that we can have middle class working families and all families of all different levels able to maintain and keep their stability and their economic ability to continue their lives as they currently have. So it is something that I look forward to working with my colleagues in Congress and learning more about what those particular issues will be, and I'll be guided by that information.
Shavonda Sumter, over to you.
Thank you. And we hear all the time how expensive it is to live in New Jersey. We need the restoration of the SALT. It's important for the middle class and working families. I stood for the millionaire's tax in New Jersey at times alone, but it was important that we had the contributions of the millionaires to support the least of those. The middle class, working families, they can't give anymore. When you're working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet, to put food on the table, when the cost of inflation and prices for healthy foods has increased, it's important that we are able to receive as much federal dollars back as possible. So absolutely, I would be working shoulder to shoulder with the New Jersey delegation to be sure that we amplify the need to have the restoration of the SALT. I'm also a workhorse and I know how to get things done. So having those conversations and bringing those stories of those family members and the impact to the table, which is what Bill Pascrell always did. He made it personal to appeal to the hearts of leaders for a change.
Okay, that concludes our time with the panelists. That always goes by so fast. Let's get now to closing statements. Each of you has 90 seconds. We're going to start first with Nellie Pou, then to Shavonda Sumter, and then finally Benjie Wimberly. Go ahead, Nellie Pou.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. First of all, I want to thank the New Jersey Globe once again for hosting this forum. Secondly, I just want to add that over the past 27 years, I've had the privilege of engaging with voters and successfully running for elective office over a dozen times. My deep understanding of our constituency, combined with my extensive experience, ensures me that I am prepared to hit the ground running. On day one, I take pride in my track record for delivering results, and I am fully committed to serving the residents of the 9th Congressional District. If elected, I will make history as the first Latina to represent New Jersey in the United States Congress. My proven record of tackling crucial issues, including making New Jersey more affordable, lowering the healthcare costs, ensuring good paying jobs, and strengthening our education system, demonstrating my dedication to addressing the needs that matter most. My experience extends beyond local and state level. As president of a major national organization, I collaborated with colleagues across the country on critical policy matters, including valuable relationships and networks that will benefit our district. Like my esteemed predecessor, Bill Pascrell, I am committed to upholding a legacy of service and leadership, upholding his legacy. Thank you.
Senator. Thank you, Senator Shavonda Sumter. You to your closing statements.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you this evening. I know you had to put this together in record time. Once again, I am deeply saddened at the loss of our Congressman Bill Pascrell, and my condolences to his family. During these past 4 days, I've met some wonderful people in the 9th Congressional District who have just been fabulous in sharing their stories and their interactions with Congressman Pascrell. I've made over 300 phone calls. I've heard how the congressman would answer their phone calls. If he was here from Washington, he would show up at their events. In fact, I could be driving on Route 4 at 7 a.m. and then at 8 p.m. heading to the Brownstone for dinner, and I would see him heading to that dinner and then hopping up on the stage to give a rousing speech. The great thing about this delegation, if I may, is we show up for people. I've had the esteemed privilege of running with Benjie Wimberly and Nellie Pou for my entire legislative career. It has been an honor to serve with each of these two individuals. And in fact, it's an honor to be on this panel with them today. So our next congressional leader has to have a heart for the people, has to fight for Paterson and the least of those, and the full district, which includes Hudson and Bergen County, and expand the stories and the voices for the resources that we need, because there was a saying that was always said that I remember when it came to Bill Pascrell, and I honor that. He brought the bacon home.
Benjie Wimberly, time for your closing statement.
Yes, and once again, my condolences to the Pascrell family. I thank him for his mentorship and leadership here in CD9 and being a neighbor here in Paterson all. I just say in closing, my work has spoken for itself, be it as an educator, be it as a coach, be it as a director, you name it. City council in the assembly, I think have been a champion for all people. Regardless of race, creed, color, I have been there for everybody. In particular, I would say as the regular, this guy, when everybody was celebrating Coach Waltz last week, everybody kept texting me about coach. Coaching is special. I have mentored thousands of kids. I have helped thousands of kids go to college with millions of dollars of savings, putting many hours in. And many times during my time as an assemblyman, I served as an assemblyman, I served as the director of recreation, a football coach, a husband, and a father of 4, and a surrogate father to so many others. But every morning almost when I'm here in the city of Patterson between 7:30 and 8:30, they know they can find me at Dunkin' Donuts on Route 20 to have a conversation. They can't find me there. You know what? They know I'm going to be now over at Food Town in Elmwood Park. Or every night, as Shavonda said, we're at the Brownstone, we're at Lanise, you name it, and we'll be there for everybody in the entire CD9. The one thing I can say, I will continue to mentor, I will continue to coach, and I will continue a fighter like Bill Pascrell in the U.S. Congress. And we can't wait to vote for Hakeem Jeffries as the next Speaker of the House of the U.S. Congress.
We want to thank you for joining us tonight on Meet the Candidates. I also want to make sure we thank our panelists, David Wildstein, Micah Rasmussen, and Joey Fox, our organizers, the New Jersey Globe on New Jersey and the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Thank you to the candidates who participated as well tonight. We are working to bring you more programming like this, where our viewers have an opportunity to hear from the people looking to represent you. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.